Hi, this is Cathy from Easy Sunday Club. It's been a while since I've done a watercolor tutorial, so I thought I would add this to the mix with all the business and how-to videos that we do on this channel. Today we're going to paint this hummingbird in my loose watercolor style. I hope you enjoy and leave a comment below what else you like to see me paint. I've included the sketching process as well, so feel free to skip ahead if you want to go straight to the painting part. All right, have fun. All right, so let's start with a pencil sketch of this hummingbird. The way I like to approach this, because the hummingbird's silhouette is relatively simple, I like to break it up into sections or into basic shapes. So you can see the head is roughly circle. I know it's not exactly a circle, but this is step one here. And the body is about twice. So for breaking it up by color section here, so the middle part of the main part of the hummingbird's body is about twice the length of the head. So whatever the head is, you want to make it twice as large. And in terms of composition, you notice the wingspan takes up a lot of space here. So you want to make sure you have enough for the wings to fit on the paper, which is why I started the head a little bit over to the right, not right in the middle, because if you put the head down right in the middle, you might run out of room when you're trying to spread out the wings. So next, I'm drawing a kind of a cylindrical shape for the body, just to mark it, and the beak is about 30 degree towards the top right, or roughly like 2 o'clock. So this is where it goes. And the tail is a straight. So I'm kind of painting it like the body is almost diagonally across the paper, and the beak is a bit over 2 o'clock. So with the tail, it's going to point directly to the lower left corner of the paper. If you're working with a rectangular paper, the reference is a little different, but you just want to make sure the back is a bit straight. And I'm not too worried about making the bird exactly look like this. I mean, compositionally, I think we can change up the wingspan or change the tilt of the head slightly, but you know, that's up to you to use your creative license. So for the wings, where I'm estimating that it is longer than the body, the main part of the body, but maybe it's equal distance. So from the one end of the wing to the next, it's about the same distance as the neck to the tail end of the bird. So we'll make sure it's about this long, which will take it all the way very close to the corner of this paper. And if you were to break up the wing into simple shape, it's a tall, obtuse triangle. And the second wing comes right above it. So now I want to define the belly a little more. This is not a perfect cylinder. The belly does protrude a little bit. I like to exaggerate the protrusion just a bit more. It's cuter. It makes the bird look, you know, chubby and cute. So I like to do that when I paint birds in general. So accentuate the belly a bit more. I actually want the tail to tip up a little more. So now it's really starting to take shape. And the beak is it's longer than the length. It's about 30% longer than the length of the head. So I'll place the mark there. And there's a slight arch in the back. Now we start with very basic shapes, and then from there we start to define little curvatures within the different parts of the bird, of the hummingbird. I'm going to just roughly place the eye somewhere here. So remind me not to paint there if I were to paint the rest of the face, the head first. And I'll start connecting the line from the top of its head to the beak a bit more. And the bird claws are here. So I'll just do a rough marking here. The first thing I like to do when I start painting is to create a color palette for this piece. And so I want to roughly follow the palette, this beautiful color palette provided by nature. So I will take advantage of that. I have size 8 Princeton synthetic brush, watercolor brush, round tip, which I will use for most of this painting with the exception of the tip, the beak, and certain details that I will use a size 1 brush. So for the head, I'm going to use Sandra Blue for the head here with the tip, with a dab of indigo. It's the first color. Like I said, I'm not trying to match it. I'm going to create a similar color palette, but not trying to replicate this exactly. Second color, I'm going to use Viridian and Cobalt Teal. So any version of turquoise, teal that you have will work. The third color is of a goldish green color. Actually, I do have a paint color called Green Gold. I believe it's Daniel Smith or Winsor Newton. You can look it up there. I wanted to have a little more green, so I'm just adding a hint of cobalt turquoise. That looks good. And for the tail here, I'm going to use burnt sienna. Burnt sienna is probably one of my most used colors. Burnt sienna with some Chinese orange. And for the wingspan, actually, this looks very purple violet to me. I'm actually not going to make it that purple. I want to offset the brightness of the body with some more cooler tones. So I'm using a mix of light gray and with a hint of India red. All right, so that's a good starting color. I also have 5 puddles here, so I can just work off of that. And let's get to work. So I'm going for a very loose style watercolor here. And first I like to erase some of the pencil marks. I usually don't have sketches this detailed, even though to you it might not look that detailed, but I like to keep the sketch marks very subtle, just because I'm more of an intuitive painter, so the way I paint, I don't really try to follow the guidance of the lines. The lines are more for me to locate where everything is, so you know, I'm not like painting the eyes too far to the left or something. So first I'm going to paint the belly area. So I'm looking at the values here. The head definitely has darker value. Darker value means just darker, higher value. And the wings are also a bit dark, although I may change that. This part here is where the light hits the side of the belly. And because it's a green gold color, it's brighter, lighter in value. So how I approach this with loose watercolor is, so with more realistic painting styles, you kind of want to like fill up the whole bird with different color paints and layering on top of it. With loose watercolor, you really just want to like give the impression of the subject without being super realistic and detailed. And how do I create that impression? I do it by using a lot of wet on wet technique as base layers. So I have just a brush with water loaded only, and I'm going to apply a layer of water underneath here in the belly area. And I'm going to take some green gold. I want to have enough paint to cause some damage, and I'm just gonna drop it in. And you'll see that I start to bloom outwards because, you know, there's already water on there, and that's what happens when you drop watercolor paint onto wet paper. Don't use too much water because it will just sit on top and it'll take forever to dry. But I want the line like to be really soft. Like you don't see a harsh outline here because I actually want the belly to just fade out to a white. And while that's happening, while everything's still wet, I'm going to start start converting to other colors. So right here we have more of the turquoise color, so I'm going to drop it in here. And keep in mind, I always say this in my tutorials, everything will appear lighter when they dry. So if you feel like you put on too much, don't worry, it's going to dry. It's going to lighten up when it dries. And now I'm going to add just a little bit of blue to start transitioning to the head. Here I'm using very little paint. It's kind of fading into a pale blue, and that's okay. I'm thinking at this point my brush might be too big for this area because I'm getting close to the beak as well. So I'm changing to the size 2. I also have a size 1 in case I need it. Looks like I do need a size 1 because my canvas is not very big. Now with this small brush that doesn't hold a lot of water, I'm going to load up a make my own purple color, which using a crimson and indigo to get that deep purple color. And I'll just brush it in to create that color. And I'm gonna have the beak match a color scheme of the wings that I've made up myself. So I'll use this, it's kind of a light violet gray color. I'm gonna be careful here with the beak because it does taper off to like a very thin tip. Now you don't want to make it too long. All right, that looks good. And this part's almost dried, so now I'm going to use wet on dry because this part is dry and apply the tail, which is again burnt sienna. It's this color here. See how my color palette, initial color palette, has dried already and everything just looks lighter. So here with the size 2 brush, I need to take better care of my brushes. I'm loading a lot of paint, but not a lot of water. So I'm using this technique called dry brushing. This brush is not completely dry, but because it's a small brush, it doesn't hold a lot of water. So I'm just going to make swift movements outwards toward the end, toward the tip of the tail. What I love about this technique is it creates a really nice contrast with the wet on wet technique here. I like to use both in the same painting. And since this part is already dried, I'm adding another layer. Right here, I purposely want to create hard edges because I want, to bring out more of a 3-dimensional impression of the bird. Because if you just lay down one color, it looks very flat. So now it's already starting to look a bit more 3D by having the belly almost white, and I'll add a bit more shadow here underneath the neck. So the second layer, I'm using less water than the first. With animals, I work on the eyes last. Sometimes, say 20% of the time, I work on the eyes first, but I don't know. I like to work on the eyes last because it really makes the painting pop, and I like to wait for that wait till the end to kind of bring everything together. So right now, without the eyes filled out, this bird looked like an alien. So I want to darken this a bit more and have it blend into the blue parts of the head. And also start to transition the color to the wings. So this is where timing does matter. So I can either have a harsh separation between the two, or I can have a very soft watercolor transition. I want to have a softer transition here, so I'm going to transition from a turquoise to a green gold. And just as I just laid down the green gold, I'm going to make more of the wing color and start pulling it out this way. Here I'm using a bit of the dry brushing again. Actually, I don't want it to be this dry. I'm just laying down a base layer of the wings, so I'm not painting the, I don't know what you call it, like the individual grooves of the wings yet. There's the bottom. It's okay if it's really light. Like I said, I wanted to convey the bird in flight, just like the photo, so I don't want the wings to look too solid. I can always add additional layers as it dries. So now I'm going to leave this alone. So let's do a review of what I have so far. I pretty much put paint down every single section I want to, and now we're going to start refining or adding more layers to bring out the dimensionality of the bird. So how do I do that? I'm going to go back to the small brush. This is again a size 1. And add more details to the tail. So this part is already dried. With dry brushing technique, the layer dries pretty quickly. So it probably dried a while ago. I'm going to add some cadmium red to my burnt sienna. And I'm just gonna create another layer here. And I'll also add a little bit of the violet in the belly here. So what I did there was I added some violet, and then I rinsed off the brush, cleaned off some of the water, and start pulling it up so that the violet can blend upwards. This process takes practice, but after a while you get the hang of how much water to use and when to clean off the brush. So just be patient, and even for me sometimes it doesn't show the results I wanted to, and you just have to keep trying. So there's a little bit of shadow in the belly here. I'm just gonna roughly place down some spots. I'm not trying to paint every single scale, but this just adds a bit more definition. So here I have very faint turquoise color. I'm re-wetting this area because I want to go back in and darken the area a little more. I'm actually not going to fill in this part at all. I'm just going to let it be like a very pale color. So this right here looks good. To now add a bit of shadow toward the bottom of the beak. I know in the photo the head is more more purple and violet than what I'm painting here, but that's okay. I'm gonna keep it blue. That looks good. Seems like I need to bring the beak out just a bit further. Okay, that looks good. And now I'm gonna go back to work on the wing. Also, I think this upper chest area is coming out too much, so I'm gonna try to correct this a bit. No, the paint's almost dry, but what you can do is take the brush, rinse off all the paint as much as you can, and just start rubbing at it. I have a 140-pound cold press watercolor paper, so it can take quite a bit of abuse. But if I just kind of rub at it gently, not too hard, the paint will start coming off, especially since it's already a light color. And I'll take this paper towel, start dabbing at it, and now this edge feels a lot lighter, almost non-existent, right? It's like a very soft transition. Okay, so let's go and tackle this wing. So I said I was going to be using more of a grayish color, so gray, here we come. Again, I'm going for loose here, so I'm not gonna individually paint in every single part of the wing. I'm just gonna take the brush and do, it's almost like dry brushing. All right, so I'm gonna just slowly build layers on top of this, but I need to wait for it to dry too. If I'm too impatient and I'm adding color right now, see, it won't stick. So while I'm waiting for it to dry, I'll look elsewhere to see what else I need to work on. Oh, I do like that the head has more purple, so I'm gonna add a little more purple to the head. It's okay if it's already dry. Watercolors can be very forgiving when it comes to subjects like this one. That is, sometimes you look at something in nature and it seems like it's made for the watercolor medium. And now I'm going to make turquoise and mix turquoise with this blue stone color, which is kind of like medium, like forest green color. I'm gonna just go in and add some details to the upper back of the bird. And the lower back. Okay. And let's not forget the bird claw. So for that, I'm using a sepia black and with a little bit of brown. So it's a very, very dark brown color. And I'll just go in. You don't want too much water. And just get the thinnest brush you have to get the claw in. There you go. And I'll just darken this area a little bit. Usually I would paint a lot faster than this, but since I'm instructing, I do want to show you each step. But a bird like this size, I could usually paint in 10 minutes. So now we'll continue to build layers on top of this. Building layer takes patience because what you envision in your head, the first couple of layers, it just looks nothing like it. And with a lot of watercolor paintings, kind of halfway or 30% of the way there, you kind of want to give up because it goes through this ugly stage. But if you just push through, it'll get to a much better spot. Something I like to do once in a while is use a very, very dry, dark version of the surrounding color. And it's almost in like an ink outline style, but very loose to kind of define the shape a bit more. So in this case, this wingspan, if I want to just define the wings a bit, don't go over the top. Just do it slowly. Again, it just brings the wing out a bit more. Like, I don't plan on painting the background, but just doing this small step can really bring out the wing. And no, you're not trying to draw the silhouette, like outline the silhouette perfectly. Just create an impression of the outline. And I want to add a little more highlights here, so I'm using a cadmium yellow to some color here. Oops. So I think it's ready for the eye. I know there's a couple of other things I want to add details to, but I'm just gonna go for the eye. So you don't want to paint the whole thing black because there's the part where the light hits the pupil. So that is a very important detail to capture. Because when it's all black, it looks kind of possessed. And it's not a perfect circle shape too. It's almost like a 3/4 moon. I'll like to add little accent next to the face, next to the eyes. And there you go. So I see that this part of the scale has a lot of detail. So I'm gonna load up the brush with a teal combination of turquoise and a little bit of green gold. And I'll just kind of suggestively add some details here. Again, very, very loose. I'm pretty happy with it now. Like I said, I'm not trying to replicate the bird exactly. Wanna just show you how I approach a loose watercolor painting like this. All right, hope you enjoy this, and let me know in the comments below what other animals or subjects in general you want a loose watercolor tutorial in. Thanks for watching this tutorial. If you enjoyed it, please give me a thumb up and subscribe to my YouTube channel, and I will see you next time.